The sound of their laughter, bright and sharp, cut through the quiet hum of the dishwasher. I gripped the cool edge of the kitchen counter, my knuckles white, a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. It had been 6 months since I married Mac. 6 months since I moved into his sprawling, too quiet house, and nearly 2 years since the world had gone dark. My name is Savannah, and at 43, I was supposed to be rebuilding. But some days, it felt like I was just sweeping up broken glass. My son, Aiden, would have been 19 now. He was 17 when the call came, a Tuesday afternoon, a sunny road, a distracted driver. One moment, he was texting me about needing new soccer cleats. The next, he was gone. Just like that. The void he left wasn't just a hole. It was a black hole, sucking all the light and joy out of everything around it. Mac, bless his quiet heart, understood that kind of loss. He'd lost his wife, Andrea, Kaya's mother, to a sudden aneurysm 5 years prior. That shared understanding, that deep, echoing grief, was what drew us together. He was 45, a good man, steady and kind, if a little emotionally distant. He offered a quiet harbor in my storm. But his daughter, Kaya, was a different kind of storm entirely. At 18, she was a whirlwind of teenage angst and fierce, unyielding loyalty to her deceased mother. From the moment I stepped across the threshold as Mac's new wife, Kaya had treated me like an unwelcome ghost. Her eyes, Andrea's eyes, would flick over me with an icy disdain that could chill a summer day. Every attempt I made to bridge the gap felt like trying to build a bridge over a chasm with a single thread. "Kaya, honey, I made your favorite lasagna tonight," I'd offered just last week, setting the bubbling dish on the table. She'd picked at her food, then pushed the plate away. "Mom always made it better." Or, "Need any help with your college applications, sweetie?" I'd asked, seeing her hunched over her laptop. "No thanks," she'd snapped, not looking up. "I'm fine. Dad's got it covered." I tried. I really did. I bought her favorite snacks, remembered her obscure band preferences, even offered to drive her and her friends, Ava and Gwendolyn, to the mall, only to be met with a flat, "We're good." Desmond's picking us up. Desmond was her on-and-off boyfriend, a lanky 19-year-old with too much confidence and a perpetually smirking face. Tonight, Kaya had her friends over, huddled in her room, their voices a muffled murmur until the sudden burst of laughter. I was wiping down the counters, trying to ignore the dull ache in my chest, when their voices drifted clearly through the open door. "No way, Kaya, seriously." That was Ava. "Yeah, my dad was freaking out about the tuition deposit, right?" Kaya's voice, a little too loud, a little too gleeful. And then, poof, it was just paid. And then Savannah shows up a week later with that weirdly smooth forehead. Gwendolyn giggled. "You think she used your college fund for Botox?" "Totally," Kaya snorted. "Dad's money, my tuition. And suddenly, she's looking like she just rolled out of a spa. She probably thought we wouldn't notice." Like, who even does that? More laughter, cruel and dismissive. My breath hitched. My hands clenched tighter on the counter, the cool granite digging into my palms. My forehead, I knew, was not weirdly smooth. It was just me. The accusation, so casual, so venomous, hit me like a physical blow. Stealing their money for Botox? The sheer audacity, the entitled ignorance of it, made a cold fury bloom in my chest, pushing out the grief for a moment. They kept laughing, oblivious. I stood there, frozen, listening to the echoes of their mirth. My mind raced, not with anger, but with a chilling clarity. They thought I was a thief, a shallow stepmother who'd pilfered a college fund for vanity. They thought I was oblivious. I was furious, yes, but I was silent. The next morning, the silence in the house felt heavier than usual. Kaya, surprisingly, was quiet at breakfast, glued to her phone, a small, smug smile playing on her lips. I watched her, a cold resolve hardening in my chest. The anger from last night hadn't dissipated. It had settled, like fine dust, over everything. I was in the living room trying to focus on a book when my phone buzzed with an alert. It was Ruby, my younger sister. Her text read, "OMG, Savannah, have you seen this? Kaya's TikTok." My fingers trembled slightly as I opened the app. There it was, a short video, maybe 15 seconds long. Kaya, with Eva and Gwendolyn giggling in the background, was holding up a picture of me, taken subtly, probably from the living room. Her voice, pitched to sound innocent but laced with sarcasm, narrated over a filter that made my face look unnaturally smooth and shiny. When your dad's new wife suddenly has a glow-up right after your college fund mysteriously gets paid. She then mimed counting stacks of money, mouthing, "Botox, baby," and winked at the camera. The caption read, "Plastic face and stolen bank skills. Shuck stepmom drama, shuck college fund, shuck Botox queen." My stomach churned. It wasn't just the accusation, it was the public humiliation, the sheer, unadulterated nastiness of it. Then I saw Desmond's name. He'd reposted it, adding his own comment. "My girl ain't playing. She is truth bomb." His repost amplified it, pushing it out to an even wider circle. The comments section was already a cesspool. "OMG, she really did that? Typical gold digger stepmom. Poor Kaya, getting her future stolen." A few people I vaguely recognized from town had even liked it. It wasn't viral on a national scale, but in our small, interconnected town, it was spreading like wildfire. My face, my name, were being dragged through the digital mud. I closed the app, my hand surprisingly steady. The storm inside me wasn't rising. It was settling into a quiet, dangerous calm. This wasn't just a teenage tantrum anymore. This was a public defamation. Mac got home earlier than usual that day, his face a mask of bewilderment and anger. He usually walked in with a quiet, "Honey, I'm home," but today he just stood in the doorway, his briefcase still in his hand, looking at me with a mixture of accusation and confusion. "Savannah," he started, his voice strained. "Have you seen what Kaya posted?" I met his gaze, my expression unreadable. "I have." He dropped his briefcase with a thud. "What the hell is going on? She's saying you took her college money for cosmetic procedures?" His voice rose slightly, a rare display of emotion from him. "People are talking, Savannah. My sister Hope just called me, practically in tears. She saw it." I walked over to him, my movements deliberate. "Mac, I understand you're upset, and you should be, but not at me." I kept my voice low even. "We'll talk. I have something to show you." He looked at me, his brow furrowed, clearly expecting an immediate, tearful denial. My calm seemed to throw him off balance. I walked past him, heading towards the small, built-in safe hidden behind a painting in his study. He followed, his eyes fixed on my back. I knelt, inputted the code, a code Mac had given me when I moved in, a sign of trust, and the heavy door clicked open. Inside, nestled among important documents and a few family heirlooms, was a small stack of papers. I pulled out a specific envelope, sealed and pristine. "See?" I said, holding it up for him to see inside the safe, untouched. Mac peered into the safe. He saw the contents undisturbed. He saw the envelope. His shoulders slumped slightly, a flicker of relief crossing his face. But then it was replaced by that same conflicted look. He knew I hadn't opened the safe and taken money out of it, but Kaya's accusation, so loud, so public, still hung in the air. His daughter's word against mine, even with physical proof that this specific money hadn't been touched. He was torn. He ran a hand through his hair, looking from the safe to me, his eyes still clouded with doubt. "But Then what is she talking about, Savannah? Why would she say something like that? I didn't answer immediately. I just closed the safe, the soft click echoing in the quiet room. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips. Inside me, the storm was no longer just rising. It was fully formed, silent, and ready to unleash. Mac's doubt, even after seeing the untouched safe, was a dull ache. He was a good man, but his passivity, his desire for peace, often blinded him to the sharper edges of reality, especially when it came to Kaya. He wanted to believe his daughter, but the evidence I presented contradicted her. The truth, however, was far more complicated than a simple yes or no to stealing from a safe. The real story began almost 2 years ago in the wreckage of my own life. When Aiden died, the world shattered. He was so young, so full of plans. He'd been saving up for a beat-up old car, dreaming of road trips with his friends. The life insurance policy, a small one from my old job, paid out a modest sum. It wasn't enough to replace him, not even close, but it was his money, his legacy. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. It felt sacred. For months, it sat in a separate account, a painful reminder of what was lost. Then, one day, Ruby, my sister, came over. She found me staring at the bank statement, tears blurring the numbers. "Savannah," she'd said gently, "Aiden wouldn't want this money to just sit there, gathering dust." He was always about moving forward, about helping people. Her words resonated. Aiden had always been fiercely independent, but also incredibly generous. He'd once given his entire allowance to a classmate who couldn't afford a field trip. That conversation with Ruby sparked an idea. Aiden couldn't fulfill his dreams, but his money could help someone else fulfill theirs. It would be an education fund, a living tribute to his potential. I decided then and there that every penny of that life insurance payout would go towards someone's future, someone who needed it, someone who could use it to chase dreams Aiden never got to pursue. It felt right, a way to channel my grief into something positive, something that honored his spirit. When Kaya started applying to colleges last year, Mac was stressed about the tuition. He'd mentioned Andrea hadn't left much in savings, and his own income, while comfortable, was stretched. I saw Kaya, bright and ambitious, and a thought clicked into place. This was it. This was Aiden's legacy. His money, giving hope to someone else. I didn't tell Mac. I didn't want it to feel like charity or for Kaya to feel beholden. It was a quiet act, a personal one, a way to heal a small part of my own broken heart by investing in another young life. So, just 2 weeks before Kaya's TikTok went live, I had quietly transferred $38,000 directly to the university for her first semester's tuition. It was a significant chunk of Aiden's fund, but it felt like the right thing to do. She was going to college, chasing her dreams. It was a quiet victory for me, a secret solace. And now she was accusing me of stealing Dad's college fund for Botox. The irony was a bitter, metallic taste in my mouth. Her lies weren't just cruel, they were ignorant, a slap in the face to a sacrifice she didn't even know had been made. She was spitting on Aiden's memory, on the very gift that was meant to honor him. I sat down at my laptop, the calm resolve solidifying into a plan. Mac was still hovering, looking lost. "I'll explain everything, Mac," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Just give me a moment." I found the university's financial aid department email address. Then I meticulously gathered every document, the life insurance payout statement, the bank transfer confirmations, the university's tuition payment receipt, all with clear dates and timestamps. I drafted an email, concise and to the point. It stated that due to unforeseen circumstances and a serious breach of trust, I was revoking my sponsorship of Kaya Burton's education, effective immediately. I attached the itemized receipts, showing the origin of the funds and their destination. My finger hovered over the send button. This wasn't just about clearing my name, it was about consequences. It was about showing Kaya that actions, especially public ones, have repercussions. It was about protecting Aiden's memory from her careless, entitled slander. I took a deep breath. Then I added 2 more email addresses to the CC line. One was Max. He deserved to know the full truth, without my filter. The other was Hope's. Hope, Mac's sister, Andrea's sister-in-law, the family's resident gossip queen. She was the one who kept the family group chat alive, the one who had called Mac in tears about Kaya's TikTok. If anyone could ensure Andrea's voice from the grave was heard, it would be Hope, spreading the real story through the family grapevine. This wasn't just about Kaya, it was about setting the record straight, publicly and irrevocably. With a steady hand, I pressed send. The first domino had fallen. The university's reply came swiftly, a mere 24 hours after I hit send. It was a polite, professional email confirming receipt of my request and the immediate freezing of Kaya's enrollment. Her dorm room, which she hadn't even moved into yet, was recalled, the deposit automatically refunded to the original payment method, my account. The email detailed the next steps for Kaya to re-enroll, which basically involved finding a new source of funds. I forwarded the confirmation to Mac without a word. The real fireworks began a few hours later. I was in the kitchen making myself a cup of tea when I heard Kaya's phone blaring from her room. It was a frantic, high-pitched wail, followed by a crash. Then silence. A few minutes later, the front door slammed. I peered out the window to see Kaya, her face blotchy and tear-streaked, practically sprinting down the driveway towards Eva's car. They peeled out of the neighborhood, leaving a faint scent of burnt rubber. I knew exactly what had happened. She'd probably received the university's email while out with her friends, maybe at brunch, and the public humiliation of being cut off, mid-meal, had triggered her meltdown. Good. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. It was Mac. Savannah, what have you done? His voice was tight, strained. Hope just called me, screaming. She said Kaya's enrollment is frozen. She said you paid for it in the first place? I told you I had something to show you, Mac, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. Did you check your email? He paused, then a muffled sound of him typing. Oh my God, he whispered. The attachments, the bank vouchers, Aiden's money. The group chat, which Hope usually kept alive with mundane updates and family memes, exploded. I wasn't in it, thankfully, but I could hear Mac's phone vibrating incessantly on the counter. He was pacing, running a hand through his hair, his face pale. Hope is furious, he said, staring at his phone. She's saying Andrea would be devastated, that Kaya's future is ruined. Andrea, I said, my voice flat, would be devastated that her daughter publicly slandered someone who quietly paid for her education. And she would be devastated that her daughter was so entitled that she thought she could lie about it without consequence. Just then, Mac's phone rang again. He answered it, putting it on speaker. It was Hope, her voice shrill and laced with tears. Mac, what is going on? Kaya just called me hysterical. Her college, her dorm, it's all gone. Savannah sent me an email, Mac, with bank statements. Did you know she paid for Kaya's tuition with Aiden's life insurance money? My God, Mac, this is insane. Andrea would be turning in her grave. Hope, calm down, Mac tried, but she wasn't listening. And then she canceled it. Just like that. Who does that? And she CC'd me. She wanted me to see it. She wanted to humiliate Kaya. And you. This is what she does, Mac. She destroys things. Hope, I interjected, my voice cutting through her hysteria. I sent you the email so you would have the facts. Kaya publicly accused me of stealing money for cosmetic procedures. The money she was talking about, the money that paid for her first semester, came directly from my deceased son's life insurance policy. A policy I set up to fund someone's education in his memory. Kaya's actions were not just an attack on me, but a desecration of Aiden's legacy. I simply revoked a gift that was being defamed. A stunned silence fell on the other end of the line. Hope, for once, was speechless. Mac looked at me, then back at his phone. He picked it up, took it off speaker, and walked into the other room, his voice low and muffled as he tried to explain to Hope. I heard snippets. Yes, I saw the documents. It was Aiden's money. She paid for it. Kaya lied. He came back a few minutes later, his face etched with a profound weariness. He held out his phone, showing me screenshots from the family group chat. Hope had predictably shared the email and the attached documents. Linda, another one of Mac's cousins, had chimed in, "Oh my God, Kaya really did that. That's awful." Hugh, Mac's brother, ever the instigator, had posted, "So the new wife plays hardball. Interesting." The family was already divided. Mac sank onto a kitchen chair, burying his face in his hands. "Aiden's money," he whispered again, the words barely audible. He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. "Savannah, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell us?" "Because it wasn't about you, Mac," I said softly, sitting opposite him. "It was about Aiden." It was a private act of remembrance. I didn't want Kaya to feel like a charity case, or for you to feel indebted. It was a gift, freely given, in my son's name, a gift she then publicly spat on. He looked at the documents on his phone again, the life insurance source form clearly visible. The name, Aiden Meyer, printed there. His shoulders shook. He wasn't just seeing the money or the tuition. He was seeing Aiden. And he was seeing, truly seeing for the first time, the depth of Kaya's betrayal and the quiet, profound sacrifice I had made. The grief for his own son, a grief he hadn't fully processed, mixed with the shock of Kaya's actions, finally broke him. He just sat there, head bowed, whispering, "Aiden's money?" The fallout was swift and spectacular. Kaya, reeling from the university's email and the sudden public exposure of her lie within the family, spiraled online. Her initial TikTok, the one mocking my plastic face and stolen bank skills, vanished within hours. Then a new post appeared, a rambling, teary video attempting to explain away her actions. It was less an apology and more a justification, blaming misunderstandings and stress, and vaguely implying I was somehow manipulative. It didn't land well. The comments, once overwhelmingly against me, were now a mixed bag, some still defending her, but many questioning her narrative. "Wait, so your stepmom paid for it? She used her dead son's money and you called her a thief. Yikes." While Kaya was busy trying to salvage her online image, I was sipping herbal tea at a quaint little spa Ruby had booked for me. "And I can't believe you didn't throw them off a balcony gift," she'd called it, her eyes twinkling with a mix of concern and admiration. Ruby, ever my rock, had been the only one who hadn't wavered, who had seen the truth from the start. She'd just listened to my quiet explanation, then nodded. "Good for you, Sav. Sometimes the high road is just a scenic route to the same destination." I spent the day in blissful silence, getting a much-needed massage, letting the tension drain from my shoulders. The world outside, with its social media storms and family drama, felt wonderfully distant. My silence was my shield, and now it was becoming my weapon. When I returned home, the house was quiet, but the air still crackled with unspoken tension. Mac was on the phone, his voice low. He hung up as I walked in. "That was Hope," he said, running a hand over his face. She's actually siding with you now. She said Kaya was being an ungrateful brat. She saw the documents. She said Andrea would be ashamed. A small internal victory. Hope, the family's resident drama queen, had finally seen the light, but the family was still divided. Hugh, Mac's brother, had apparently taken to calling me the Ice Queen in the group chat, stirring the pot further, suggesting I was cold and calculating. He didn't understand. He couldn't. Mac sat me down, his expression heavy. "Savannah," he began, his voice softer than it had been in days. I understand why you did what you did. I do. But Kaya, she's just a kid. She made a mistake. A big one, yes, but she's still learning." I looked at him, my gaze steady. Aiden was a kid too, Mac. He was 17. He made a mistake. He trusted another driver on the road. He doesn't get to make mistakes anymore. He doesn't get to learn from them. He doesn't get to go to college or make TikToks or ruin anyone's reputation. My voice was quiet, but it held an edge of steel. He doesn't get to make any mistakes anymore. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken grief. Mac flinched, his eyes widening as the full weight of what I was saying finally hit him. He saw the parallel, the raw, unfair truth of it. His daughter, alive and making careless, hurtful choices, while my son, forever 17, was denied any future at all. He had been so caught up in Kaya's drama, in the family's reaction, that he hadn't truly connected her actions to the profound loss that had enabled her tuition payment in the first place. Later that evening, after Mac had gone to bed, I found myself in the steam room, a small luxury I'd added to the master bath. The heat enveloped me, blurring the edges of the tiled walls. The quiet hum of the steam felt like a balm, and there, in the solitude, something shifted. The quiet fury, the cold resolve, the strategic calm, it all began to melt away, leaving behind a raw, aching vulnerability. I let myself cry. Not the quiet, dignified tears I usually shed for Aiden, but deep, gut-wrenching sobs that shook my entire body. Tears for Aiden, for the future he lost, for the unfairness of it all. Tears for the sacrifice I'd made and the callous way it had been treated. Tears for the burden of grief I carried and the unexpected cathartic release of finally fighting back, not with anger, but with cold, hard truth. It wasn't just vengeance. It was a desperate, primal scream against the injustice of a world that had taken my son. And as the tears flowed, something in me began to heal. I realized with a startling clarity that this quiet, measured revenge wasn't just about Kaya. It was about me. It was about finally, truly grieving my son, not in silence, but by reclaiming his dignity, by ensuring his legacy wasn't trampled underfoot by a spoiled teenager. The steam swirled around me, hot and cleansing. I felt lighter, emptier, yet paradoxically stronger. The vengeance had not been a burden, it had been a release. Just as I was about to step out, my phone, which I'd left outside the steam room, buzzed with a notification. It was an email from the university. I dried my hands and opened it. It was an update regarding Kaya Burton's enrollment status. Not just frozen for the semester, but unenrolled for the full academic year. And a note. Andrea's last savings, a small sum Mac had mentioned, wouldn't be enough to cover the next semester either, let alone the full year. Kaya was truly on her own. The house felt different after Kaya returned. The usual teenage bluster was gone, replaced by a sullen quiet. She moved through the house like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, her phone conspicuously absent from her hand. The online world, I knew, had turned on her. Her attempts at justification had only made things worse, and the full unenrollment from the university had been the final, crushing blow. A few days later, I was in the kitchen making coffee when Kaya walked in. She hesitated by the doorway, then shuffled over to the counter, her shoulders hunched. "Can we talk?" she mumbled, her voice barely audible. It was the first time she'd initiated a conversation with me that wasn't a barbed comment or a demand. I poured my coffee, then turned to face her, my expression neutral. "We can." She fidgeted, picking at a loose thread on her sweatshirt. I messed up," she finally said, her gaze fixed on the countertop. About the TikTok and what I said." No eye contact, no genuine remorse in her posture, just humiliation. It was a blunt apology, forced out by circumstance, not by true understanding. My calm, I knew, was more unsettling to her than any anger could have been. "You did," I agreed, my voice even, devoid of emotion. "You publicly accused me of stealing money that wasn't yours to pay for cosmetic procedures I didn't get from your father's savings, which also weren't touched." I took a sip of my coffee. "Do you know where the money for your first semester actually came from, Kaya?" She mumbled something, barely audible. "Dad said something about Aiden's money?" "Nearly $40,000, I stated, the facts laid out like cold, hard stones. "For you, from Aiden's life insurance policy. Every penny of it. It was meant to be a gift, a way to honor his memory by helping someone else achieve their dreams. A quiet act, given with no strings attached, no expectation of gratitude. And you gave me defamation, slander, and a viral TikTok." Her head snapped up then, her eyes wide, finally meeting mine. The shame was palpable, washing over her face. She hadn't fully grasped the origin of the money or the depth of the sacrifice until that moment. The casual cruelty of her actions, juxtaposed with the profound, quiet generosity that had preceded them, seemed to hit her all at once. I didn't know," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I swear I didn't know it was his." "Of course you didn't," I replied, my voice still calm, but with an underlying current of steel. "Because you didn't bother to ask. You just assumed the worst. You chose to believe a lie, and then you spread it, not caring about the truth, or the person you were hurting, or the memory you were desecrating." I watched her, her face crumbling, tears finally welling in her eyes. This wasn't the performative crying for her friends or for TikTok. This was raw, ugly shame. "You called me a thief," I continued, my voice unwavering. "You called me vain. You mocked my appearance, all while I was quietly trying to give you a future my son never got to have. You disrespected his memory, Kaya. You disrespected the gift you didn't even know you were given. And you tried to assassinate my character out of teenage resentment." I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. The power of my calm, the stark, undeniable facts, eviscerated Kaya more completely than any rage ever could have. She stood there, shrinking, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Mac walked in then, drawn by the quiet intensity of the conversation. He stopped, taking in the scene. Kaya, broken and ashamed, and me, standing tall and composed, delivering the unvarnished truth. He watched, silent, as I continued. "This isn't just about you, Kaya. This is about responsibility. About the weight of your words, about what you choose to believe and what you choose to put out into the world." Mac's gaze shifted from Kaya to me, then back to Kaya. I could see it in his eyes, a clearer vision. He had been so consumed by his own grief, so eager to keep the peace, that he had allowed Kaya's anger and entitlement to fester. He had failed to parent her through her own grief, to teach her the consequences of her actions. He was seeing his daughter, truly seeing her, perhaps for the first time since Andrea died, stripped bare of her bravado and resentment. He realized, with a painful clarity, that he may have failed her, and in doing so, he had allowed her to hurt me and Aiden's memory so deeply. After that conversation, Kaya became a ghost in the house. She barely spoke, kept to her room, and the defiant glint in her eyes was replaced by a hollow, defeated look. Mac, for his part, was trying. He was spending more time with her, talking to her, really listening. He looked exhausted, but also, finally, engaged. It was a painful process for them both, but it was necessary. I, on the other hand, avoided family events. The whispers, the curious glances, the thinly veiled judgment from some of Mac's relatives. I didn't need it. Ruby was my only consistent contact, and she kept me sane. Just let them stew, she'd advised. The truth always comes out. And it did. Karma, it turned out, didn't just knock. It arrived with receipts, gift-wrapped and delivered by Kaya's own former best friend. It happened about 2 weeks after Kaya's public apology attempt. I was scrolling through my social media feed, something I rarely did anymore, when a notification popped up. Gwendolyn, one of Kaya's now former friends, had tagged me in a new video. The title was blunt. Plastic villain was Angel all along. My heart hammered. I clicked on it, a strange mix of dread and anticipation churning in my stomach. The video opened with Gwendolyn, looking directly into the camera, her expression serious. "Okay, so I need to clear some things up," she began. "Everyone's been talking about Kaya's stepmom, Savannah, and how she stole Kaya's college fund. That's not what happened." She then launched into a detailed explanation, complete with screenshots of the university's enrollment freeze email that Kaya had apparently shown her, and a few text messages where Kaya had bragged about the money. "Kaya told us Savannah paid for her first semester," Gwendolyn explained, her voice steady. "She even showed us the confirmation. She was bragging about it, actually. Said she had leftovers and showed off this new Gucci bag she bought." A wave of cold fury, quickly followed by a grim satisfaction, washed over me. A Gucci bag, with Aiden's money, the sheer, unadulterated entitlement. Gwendolyn continued. "She said Savannah was loaded and wouldn't miss it. And then, when Savannah cancelled it, Kaya just freaked. She told us to say Savannah stole it. She twisted everything. I believed her. We all did. But then my mum saw the emails Savannah sent to Mac and Hope with all the bank stuff, and she told me I needed to tell the truth. Savannah didn't steal anything. She gave Kaya money for college from her dead son's life insurance, and Kaya lied about it. She made it up. She made us all believe it. The video went viral, not just in our town, but beyond. It was picked up by local news blogs, then larger gossip sites. The comment section exploded, this time overwhelmingly in my favor. "Justice for Savannah. Kaya is a monster. What an ungrateful brat." Desmond, Kaya's boyfriend, who had been so quick to repost her original lie, deleted his account entirely. Kaya's online presence, already dwindling, evaporated. She lost credibility, not just with her friends, but with anyone who had followed the drama. Her college dreams, already on thin ice, now seemed to dwindle into nothingness. No university would want a student with that kind of public record, especially one involving financial dishonesty. I didn't gloat publicly. I didn't comment on Gwendolyn's video or post any triumphant messages. My silence remained my most potent weapon. But I did do one thing. I called the spa Ruby had booked for me and scheduled a new laser treatment, a small indulgence. When the receptionist asked for a name for the reservation, I paused, then gave my own. And then quietly I added, "And if you could just make a note for me in memory of Aiden Meyer." It was a small, private nod to my son, a silent acknowledgement that his legacy had been defended, his dignity restored. A few days later, I was in the living room reading when I heard Kaya's door open. She walked out, phone in hand, and sat on the stairs, her face pale. I watched her subtly as she scrolled through her phone. Her thumb moved slowly, deliberately. One by one, I saw her delete every single social media post she had ever made about me, about the stolen money, about her struggles. Every trace of her public defamation gone. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes, red-rimmed and swollen, met mine. And for the first time, truly for the very first time, Kaya looked ashamed, not just humiliated, not just angry, but genuinely, deeply ashamed. Life in the house settled into a new, quieter rhythm. The storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape irrevocably altered. The family chat, once a battlefield, was now mostly dormant, occasionally stirring with mundane updates. Hugh had gone silent, his pot-stirring efforts having backfired spectacularly. Hope, surprisingly, had become a quiet ally, occasionally sending me supportive texts. My solitude, once a consequence of grief, was now a choice, a space of peace I had carved out for myself. I still spent time with Mac, of course. He was trying, truly trying. He was more present, more engaged with Kaya and with me. He'd apologized deeply and sincerely for his initial doubt, for his passivity. He was learning, slowly, how to navigate the complexities of his daughter's grief and entitlement and his own. Their relationship was still strained, but there was a fragile attempt at rebuilding, a new honesty that hadn't existed before. Kaya was tolerable, distant mostly. She hadn't found a way back into college, at least not yet. The public shame, coupled with the financial reality, had been a harsh lesson. She was working a part-time job, saving money, her future uncertain. She still avoided my gaze most of the time, but the icy contempt was gone, replaced by a subdued respect, or perhaps just resignation. Ruby came over one afternoon, bringing a bottle of wine. We sat on the patio, the late afternoon sun warm on our faces. "So," she said, swirling her wine, "do you feel bad about everything?" I laughed, a soft, genuine sound. "No, not even a little." I looked out at the garden, at the roses Mac had planted. "It's still my son's money, Ruby. I just took it back. It was never hers to begin with, not really. It was a gift from Aiden, through me. And when she defiled that gift, I revoked it. Simple as that." Ruby smiled, raising her glass. To simple truths, then. A few days later, I found a letter in the mailbox. It wasn't a bill or junk mail. It was a small cream-colored envelope, addressed to me in hesitant, unfamiliar handwriting. Kaya's. My heart gave a strange little flutter. I opened it carefully. Inside, a single sheet of paper. The handwriting was messy, almost childish, but legible. Savannah. I know I messed up. Really bad. I was stupid and mean. I didn't know about Aiden. I'm sorry for everything. For what I said, for what I did. Thank you for everything. Kaya. Thank you was barely legible, scrawled at the bottom, as if she'd hesitated, then forced herself to write it. It wasn't a grand gesture, not a tearful confession, but it was something. It was an acknowledgement, a crack in the wall. I didn't cry. There were no tears left for this particular battle. I simply folded the letter carefully and walked into my study. I opened the small wooden memory box I kept on my desk, the one filled with Aiden's things. A faded soccer medal, a worn baseball cap, a handful of concert tickets from a band he loved. I placed Kaya's letter inside, nestled among his memories. It wasn't about forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever, but it was a sign that healing in its own quiet, complicated way was possible. A sign that Aiden's legacy, though born of tragedy, could still bring about a different kind of growth. Karma doesn't always mete out justice in a neat, predictable package. Sometimes it just gives you the chance to decide what dignity looks like. For me, it looked like silence, it looked like truth, and it looked like reclaiming what was always mine to give and to take back. I didn't steal a college fund, I donated grace, and then I revoked it.